Hi, my name is Ian Hudson and I'm 34 years old and I've been working with an author called Gavin Menzies for the last 12 years and I'm a researcher and an author.
Ian Hudson é o braço direito do pesquisador Gavin Menzies, autor da teoria que inspirou a terceira expedição do Schurmann, a de que foram os chineses, e não Cristóvão Colombo, os primeiros navegadores a darem a volta ao mundo.
So the Schurmann family are basing their expedition on a book which is called 1421, the year China discovered the world. And the theory that was, the book was published in 2002, and the theory in that book is that this huge Chinese fleet sailed around the world and mapped the world, and they were the ones who provided the European explorers with maps that showed them how to get to all around the world.
So Chinese were the first to travel around the world?
That's correct, yeah.
When?
In the first book we published called 1421, that was so in 1421. However, since then we've written 3 more books, and each day we're finding that more and more evidence shows that the Chinese and lots of other different maritime nations have been sailing the oceans for thousands of years.
Which are some of this evidence?
So some of the evidence is, there's shipwrecks, there's evidence of cave paintings, there's evidence of local folklore and oral history of people all around the world talking about Chinese explorers that came to visit them before the European explorers.
And how long have you been researching this?
I've been researching this particular topic for 12 years now, and every day more and more evidence comes to light. So we set up a website which is called gavinmenzies.net, and that website acts as a focal point for research for people who come from all around the world, and they send in their evidence to us. And then we basically collect all this evidence and then we send it out to all our friends and experts around the world.
And how were this theory and now this fact received in the academic world?
Well, initially it is a very controversial subject, as you can obviously tell, because people are taught in schools that Christopher Columbus discovered the Americas in 1492, and our book says that actually the Chinese got there 70 years before Columbus, and in fact there are all sorts of different people who managed to explore the world and cross the oceans before Columbus. So naturally the professors who talk and teach about Columbus, they're pretty upset that we're saying that someone else got there before Columbus. But over the last 12 years we've got much more support from the academic world, and because our research is not only history, it's very multidisciplinary. So we have experts academics who from the sciences, from archaeology, archaeobotany, from geography, all sorts of different spheres of expertise, and all of their research comes into ours, and we have very solid academic support.
Now this theory have scientific basis.
Yeah, so in the last 12 years, or since the book was published, scientific advances have meant that we can have a much clearer idea of the evidence, that's scientific evidence such as DNA, and you can now trace where someone's come from through the genetic footprint, and also through the tracing of diseases and parasites that have travelled with people around the world. And also you can tell from plants and animals that have been discovered in one continent that have come from another continent. So basically our research has shown that mankind have been exploring the oceans and navigating using the stars and using the power of wind and water to get to other continents for centuries, for thousands of years. And Columbus and the European age of discovery was just the kind of tip of the iceberg. There's been centuries of exploration around the globe before that.
And Columbus, according to the theory, Columbus followed a Chinese map.
Yes, that's correct. We have evidence now in the 3 books that we've written about China. We've now shown gradually, as more and more publicity for our theory came out, more people started researching, and we now have maps that show the Chinese maps that some of them are held in the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C., and they show the Americas in 2200 BC. So that's a long time before Columbus. And the second book we wrote describes how a Chinese delegation went to Italy and met the Pope and handed over all sorts of information that led to the kind of European discovery. So Columbus had a map, Magellan had a map, all the Europeans had maps.
And why did the Chinese stop sailing around the world?
There was a change of political power, I suppose. Each emperor, Chinese emperor, they were very proud, and they kept on. When one emperor died, the next emperor would destroy the records of previous emperors in order to make them look better. And eventually China decided to close in on herself. They decided to stop these huge voyages of exploration because they realized that China was in trouble. China had, there was drought, and there was famine, and there was poverty. And the emperors decided that they didn't want to keep on spending money on exploring the world when they should be focusing on investing in China herself. Very excited about it, and I've no idea what they will find along their route, but I'm hoping that something might happen at some point. I'm particularly hoping that they might find a shipwreck, because that for me is the smoking gun. If they can find a shipwreck somewhere in the New World and date it to before Columbus, then it would be very exciting.
Espero que vocês tenham bons ventos e muito sucesso.